And we're live. We didn't have a countdown? No countdown this time,
No,
Ryan.
no countdown or anything
Wow,
this time.
Here we are.
All
Guys,
right.
we're live. Welcome to Hashtag Sports. Hold on, give me a second. I got to mute some stuff too. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hashtag Sports. Joe here along with Ryan, getting ready to break down this very exciting game on Sunday. Ryan, like I told you right before we came on here live, I'm so excited for this game. I don't know if I'm going to get much sleep in the next 4 to 8 hours, so I figured why not come on here and talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's the biggest game of the season so far. So, I mean, you know, every game from here on out is officially the biggest game of the year to date. So it's for everything. I tweeted it out when they announced the game, and it was, you know, this is for the division, for the playoffs, for the season on Sunday. And it comes down to, you know, Carrie Underwood, right? Like waiting all day for Sunday night. And here we go.
Absolutely.
Bills, Dolphins. First time
Absolutely.
that game's been this meaningful in 2 decades. And that includes the playoff game last year, because I don't think anybody thought Miami was going to win that game last year.
Skylar Thompson, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is the biggest game that the Bills have had since last season against the Bengals. And it's the biggest game that Miami's had in a long, long time.
Yeah, and that's where I want to start with you. Before we do that, though, again, for those of you just joining in, normally we have that 10 seconds, and we enjoy those 10 seconds because it gives us time to get ready. That did not happen. So let me get some stuff out of the way. First of all, guys, if you're new to Hashtag Sports, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like this video, like this channel, whatever you need to do, and leave a comment, because the more you guys comment, the more interactive you guys are. That gives us more to talk about, and that gives us more to break down. So we enjoy that interaction with the fans, with Hashtag Nation. So we thank you. Also, we want to thank our sponsor, Mr. Rogers Homes. All the information for him. This is one of the top 1% realtors in Arizona, the land on the sun. Ryan, is it snowing up there yet?
It's cold. It's cold.
Well, if it's not snowing yet, it's coming. And if you guys want to get away, listen, I'm sure the Bills players are more than happy this weekend to be in Miami where it's 70 degrees. So it's all right. Good scheduling by the NFL. You could be just as happy. Get a winter home in Arizona. You have a great time. Again, contact Mr. Rogers Homes. Link in the description below. Great guy. And just go ahead and do that. We thank him again for his sponsorship. But I did want to start there. You, Ryan, have always been, at least as long as I've known you, you've always been a very hard critic of Coach McDermott. Try to equate this for me to another regular season game. Has Coach McDermott had as big of a regular season game as he's going to have on Sunday night?
Oh man, that's a good question. That's a good question. I would say maybe the breaking of the drought, maybe that last stretch of games where it was win, you still need some help type football games. They finally get in. That might have been it, but that was the beginning. So I think this is a different kind of pressure, right? Because this is, the questions have swirled all season. Like, is this the end? Is this, what's this the start of? It's, has the window closed? Is this, McDermott's last chance to make an impact before you have to start asking questions about whether he should be here as the head coach or not? Is he holding this team back? So from Sean McDermott's standpoint, this might be the biggest regular season game that he's ever coached in, point blank period. And you can make the argument that it's the biggest game for a lot of these guys outside of 13 seconds. And then even the Cincinnati Bengals game where they got knocked out. This is for everything. Like we opened the show with, this is for the season. This is for all the hopes, dreams, aspirations that they came into this season with, the 14-3 record that they were staring down, the 1 seed in the AFC, the Super Bowl goes through Buffalo.
Right.
There's a real risk that if you lose this football game, you don't even go to the playoffs. You don't even have an opportunity to make noise. And that's a big problem for a team that had those expectations coming in.
Yeah, and expectations, that's exactly what I want to talk about, because we go back to that drought-breaking season. going into that season, you think about all the dead cap money that the Buffalo Bills had going into that season with Tyrod Taylor and just some guys. There weren't those expectations, right? I mean, most people preseason did not expect us to break the drought that year. I didn't expect us to break the drought that year. Again, you're talking about, I think we had, $80 million in dead cap money that season, like just dead cap, just gone. And so it was like, how can you even put a team on the field? And, we had Tyrod Taylor for a few seasons at that point, and it was just like, you get what you get, you knew like he has a sweet deep ball, but that's it. And so it was just like, we didn't really expect that. And this game, like you said, the expectations at the beginning of the season so high. Hell, we're sitting here, the Bills not even a playoff team yet, and they're still second in the AFC as far as odds to win the Super Bowl. Yeah. To me, that's unheard of. That's crazy to think about that. Going into today, we're second favorite, and then by Sunday night, Monday morning, we're not even on the board anymore because we're not in the playoffs, right? Like that's what it is. It's kind of crazy to think about when you're talking about the Buffalo Bills going into the season. But another strange thing for me, and I saw this, and you probably saw it too. So I'm hearing that there are going to be more Bills fans in Miami at Hard Rock Stadium for the game than Dolphins fans, and that's surprising to me. Like, as a Bills fan, I know Bills Mafia travels well, but what does that say about Dolphins fans?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of, those who are watching may have heard before, the Dan Le Batard show. So he formerly for ESPN, started his own media company now, Meadow Lark Media, still does his show. He's in Miami, right? They live, work in Miami. A lot of them are Dolphins fans. I've been listening to the Le Batard show for the last couple of weeks and kind of trying to get a sense of, where they're at, where their heads are at. They're terrified of this football game. And Dolphins fans in general are frightened of what's coming because they had all these expectations. They were going to take the division away from Buffalo, right? Buffalo gets them at home, stomps them, brings them back down to earth after they dropped 70 on the Broncos. And then it was kind of like they created some distance, right? And they had essentially a 2-game lead going into the last 4 games of the season. And here we are for the division. We're coming to their house, 2.5-point favorites on the road.
Yep.
We're healthy. They're getting hurt at the wrong time. They just lost Bradley Chubb. They're not going to have Xavier Howard. Tyreek Hill, who knows what's going on with him? He's been in a walking boot all week. Jalen Waddle's not practicing. Raheem Mostert hasn't practiced all week. Tua came out with a left shoulder injury last game. There's a lot of problems on the Dolphins right now. They are absolutely terrified. So I think there's that. And then there's the other narrative that everybody talks about with Miami sports teams, where there's a lot of shit to do in Miami that's not go watch football, right? Like there's a lot of stuff going on in Miami. 70 degrees at kickoff in the middle of, in the middle of January. Like there's other stuff to do. So people in Buffalo are like, cool, awesome excuse to go down to Miami, right? And get out of this weather and go watch my football team play. Now it's for all the marbles. And you've got that contingent that was already going down. Now the secondary market is showing that it's majority Buffalo Bills fans. So they're kind of putting some numbers together and they're saying, Triggs put it in the chat. It's 52% is estimated it's going to be Buffalo Bills fans. You're seeing pictures down there now. They're already taking over bars and clubs down in Miami. And we're 48 hours away from the football game. So it is going to be hectic, crazy, ridiculous time to be a Buffalo Bills fan in Miami. And heaven help the Miami Dolphins fans if the Bills win this football game, because it's going to be absolute pandemonium down there if they earn their way not only into the playoffs, but the 2 seed home playoffs until they get to the AFC title game at the latest. It's going to be a nothing but a party if the Bills fans win. Now, if the Bills lose, heaven help those Bills fans that are going to be down there, because now you're in enemy territory and now you got more problems on your hands.
Yeah, it's going to be a lonely flight home. It's going to be a long flight. It won't be a lonely flight home, but it's going to be a lot of misery on the plane on the way home. So just be careful with that. But since you brought it up, I'll skip ahead a few paces here. We're going to go into the injury report, final injury report today. Now, I did not bother to look up the Buffalo Bills injury report because it's really one name, and that's Mitch Morse. Mitch Morse had some sort of illness, but when Coach McDermott was asked about him after practice today, he said he was not concerned. So hopefully we'll have a full set of players ready to go. We saw Stefon Diggs didn't practice today. That was a veteran rest day. I think that was pretty much it, right? Did you hear anything else, Ryan? Or
everybody else was full. So the big name all week had been Micah Hyde. He had been limited most of the week. He gets in a full practice yesterday, full practice today. He's good to go. Like you said, the only one who's got any type of injury designation is going to be Mitch Morse. He's got an illness. Hopefully it's kind of that stomach bug that's going around. It comes and goes. He's ready to go Sunday night. If not, it's going to be Ryan Bates in at center, which will be something to watch for as we kind of head a little bit closer to things. How are they trending, and how's Mitch Morse feeling, because he's a big part of that offensive line and a big reason why they've been playing so well.
Well, so here's the thing. So I was looking up snap counts for the season for the Buffalo Bills earlier today as I was getting ready for the stream. Mitch Morse has been on 96.4% of snaps for the Buffalo Bills this season, and that's the lowest of all 5 of our starting offensive linemen. And so, we talk about the continuity and the importance of that. And it's just, amazing that they could stay together and pretty much healthy all season long. But I did want, like you said, the Bills getting healthy at the right time. Of course, we all know about the guys on IR. They've been on IR for a long time now. So Trey White, Matt Milano, they're not going to be, in sight. But we look at this injury report here throughout the week, and it's pretty massive, the Miami Dolphins injury report. Listen, guys, if the Bills lose this game, we cannot say it's because we didn't have the horses. Because if there's anyone who's depleted right now, it's the Dolphins. But yeah, as you mentioned, Ryan, so Bradley Chubb obviously out. Xavier Howard was also ruled out. So I think that, I think sometimes Xavier Howard gets overhyped, but I still think that's a huge injury, because I think Eli Apple then will take over. Is that right?
Yeah,
Ryan?
It's Eli Apple. Yeah.
And that's not good for Miami Dolphins fans. I'm sorry. That's not good for Miami Dolphins fans. I did hear that there's potential for Jerome Baker to be brought up tomorrow and then activated for the game on Sunday. And he'll switch with Bradley Chubb as far as IR. Is that how that works? Or
yeah, they would. Because he's in his practice window right now, right. Jerome Baker. So if they decide to activate him, they'll inactivate Chubb in the corresponding move. So
right. And if you're a Dolphins fan, there is optimism with Mostert and Waddle, because they were limited in practice today. Last week, no practice at all. So it does look like, at least for them two, the curve's moving up. But where are they going to be at come Sunday? And you talk about you talk about Hill with the boot, but let's not forget he's also had some distractions, unfortunately, and obviously we hope everything's well with him and his family. But he's had some unfortunate distractions this week.
Yeah, I mean his house is essentially burned down. I mean, right. not much else you can say about that. I mean, it's as bad a situation as you can expect from somebody other than a loved one passing away. But I mean, at the end of the day, you're getting paid a lot of money to go to work, and Dolphins fans aren't going to feel sorry for Tyreek Hill if he comes out and lays an egg on Sunday in the biggest game that their franchise has had since their last Super Bowl appearance. So you as a Bills fan, like you said, as a person, you hope that everything is okay. As a Bills fan, you hope that that's in his head and that he comes out distracted, and maybe he hasn't been able to focus on rehab because, again, it wasn't a walking boot Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week at practice. Waddle's big. I mean, I think Waddle might be the difference maker. Mostert, he's got a ton of touchdowns. I think Achane's still a better running back, a more dynamic running back. He's a running back that I'm more afraid of as a Bills fan. But that offense is entirely different with Waddle off the field. So, it's going to be a matter of, and listen, I mean, this is the Bills. Josh plays YOLO ball when Josh is playing from behind. So as many offensive injuries, as many, opportunities for Buffalo to get out fast, get points, limit offensive possessions early in the game, we've seen how that goes. Josh can hang, 4 touchdowns on you in a heartbeat, and McDermott's built to hang on to a lead, not give it up as the game closes out. But we'll see. I mean, I think Waddle's the name that I'm watching on that injury report for Miami for sure, beyond anybody else.
Sure. And yeah, so John also brought this up, and yeah, we did not look at the Buffalo Bills injury report. However, Josh Allen listed limited in practice. No, he was full this whole week, correct?
He's been full all week, yeah.
He's been full all week. But this neck and right hand injury, is that all based on the hit that he took at the end of the game last week, or is there something more to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know when he injured his finger specifically. I've been following, follow Injury Doc and, all those guys on Twitter, and nobody really seems to have a definitive time as to when he injured the finger. The neck injury, they think, is probably that last hit he took, where it's kind of like his left shoulder. He dove forward for the first down and kind of came up and was favoring that shoulder, but that's his non-throwing shoulder. So you're not super worried about that. Allen's going to go out and it's not going to change how he plays the game. And then the ring finger, if it was something that was limiting his ability to throw, he probably would have been limited in practice, I would think. But, Spin brings up a good point. Is that why maybe he seemed a little off on last week? It could be. Could be that. Could be he was just missing guys. He just seemed off. I think he was just missing guys, making bad reads, worried about what Belichick was going to throw at him. And then Belichick didn't really throw anything at him, which I think messes with a guy's head sometimes too. So I'm not worried about Josh. I mean, out of anybody out there, he's a gamer. He's going to go out and play his best game. And if he can't throw the ball, he's going to go out and run for 120 yards and will the team to some type of victory.
Sure. Bill's Witch says that he's fine. And since she's a witch, just pull that voodoo magic over top of him, whatever you need to do, as long as he's okay Sunday, Bill's Witch, I trust you. I trust your opinion. But speaking of Josh Allen, listen, if you're a Bills fan, you know about Josh Allen's success against the Miami Dolphins. It's well documented. I'm going to pull it up here real quick, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. We're going to talk about Josh Allen's career against the Miami Dolphins. This brought to you by StatViews. Over 11 games, he's 9-2. Ryan, you've probably had a chance to look at these numbers, and you looked at them in great detail. What is the most impressive number to you when this comes up?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that he's played how many games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in his career. He's got 5 turnovers, 5 interceptions, rather. 5
interceptions, yep.
I
think there's a few fumbles in there, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's big. I mean, the fact that he's only thrown 5 interceptions against these Dolphins, and really all 5 came in his first 3 games. 3 out of the 5 came in his first 2 games against them. I mean, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say it's not the numbers I see, it's the numbers I don't see, right? Because last 4 games, no interceptions. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean he's not turning the ball over with fumbles. I'm pretty sure in the playoff game he had 1 fumble. But I digress. 4 games straight now, no interceptions. I also love looking at, 273 yards per game. Like that's through 11 games. That is impressive. Now, some people say that's stat packing. I don't agree with that. I think that at least not as much as others might say it is. I think that that's just Josh Allen needing to be Josh Allen. And I'm sorry that Miami can't cover receivers. I don't know what to say. I'm good with him throwing for 273 yards. I don't know what to tell you there. But yeah, I look at that and I just think that these are very impressive numbers. But now that we look at this, my question to you is, what kind of statistical gain do you expect from Josh Allen? And listen, at the end of this episode, guys, towards the end, I already told Ryan we're going to do a little over/under. I want you guys to get involved as well. I'll put some numbers out there, and I want you guys to be over/under. But Ryan, what kind of game do you expect from Joe Brady and from Josh Allen? I think it's so tough to predict now because this offense is so different from what it was 4 or 5 weeks ago when Brady took over, right? I mean, they've really focused on the run. They struggled against New England, but New England's great against the run. And again, like I said, Josh missed a couple of reads. You wonder if early those first downs that got dropped, they catch them. Maybe they can focus on the run a little bit more. They become a little bit more successful. Sure. it's odd to say with a Josh Allen led offense, but I think they're going to go the way that the running game allows them to go. James Cook, either Murray or Fournette, whichever of the two is active. Obviously Ty Johnson's going to be active. So, they're going to go the way of the running game. I would say that if Josh Allen is on, I could fully see him throwing for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, adding a rushing touchdown with another 60 yards rushing, right? Wow. If Cook is seeing success early and Cook is eclipsing the century mark in terms of all-purpose yards or even in rushing yards, you might see a little bit more pedestrian game from Josh Allen. It's probably somewhere in the 250 range passing, 2 touchdowns, maybe 1 on the ground. But I think, when you've got a guy like Josh Allen, as Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator from Miami, called him yesterday, John Elway on steroids, when you've got that guy at quarterback, your back's against the wall, it's win or go home. I think you put the ball in his hands as often as you can and you let him go to work. And you're going to live with 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, or you're going to die with 4 interceptions because he's just trying to will you a victory. And I think that's what you're going to get this week. I don't think there's going to be mid-range Josh. It's going to be AFC Player of the Week, one of the best performances we've seen in this type of football game from a guy, or Josh is the reason that they lose this football game. I don't think there's very much in between this week.
Well, we know that even if he's not the reason, he'll get the blame. So John comes in and does ask a question that I would pose to you. And it's really, to me, this is kind of like a tough question. What do you mean by new plays? But he wants to know, do you think we'll see some new plays, maybe a new script from Joe Brady, or will that be saved for the playoffs? My quick answer, and I'll let you answer as well, would be that this is the playoffs. So you're not what are you saving it for at this point? But that would be my response. But Ryan, go ahead and give me what you think.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see the first trick play under Joe Brady on Sunday. I think that there's every reason that you should have to if your back's against the wall. But again, I mean, they could come out, go down the field and score, stop the Dolphins 3 and out, go down the field and score. Now you're in a completely different football game, right? Now you're in a ball control, on the clock, don't let them kill you fast type of game. McDermott thrives in those situations. But I think you have to expect everything to be on the table on Sunday. And I think what you're going to see in terms of wrinkles, like Lightning said in the chat, in terms of wrinkles, I really feel like they're going to try to get creative in how to get Stefon Diggs the ball. I just feel like there's been a big narrative around him the last few weeks. Him and Josh are tight. Josh has to be the key to victory. And the best way to unlock him is to figure out ways to unlock Stefon Diggs. And Diggs loves the spotlight against Jalen Ramsey, those types of corners. Those are the games he thrives in. And this is the brightest stage that he's seen as a Buffalo Bill outside of the actual playoffs. So I think they're going to create some wrinkles to try to get Stefon Diggs the football. We saw him line up at running back last week. Maybe there's more of that. Maybe there's some jet sweeps in there for him specifically. I fully expect to see some more of those little screen passes that they've tried to throw him. I would not be surprised to see 12 to 15 targets for Stefon Diggs, 10 to 12 touches overall for him heading into this game.
That's huge because, and you see me, I put it up on there, and that's something I want to talk about was what do we expect from Stefon Diggs. Last time Stefon Diggs went up against the Miami Dolphins, he scored 3 touchdowns. But, you bring up a big number there because it was only on 7 targets, I believe. I think it was 6 receptions on 7 targets, 3 of those being for touchdowns. So you're looking at like double-digit touches or at least double-digit targets. And to me, that's out there only because of the lack of production we've seen from him over the past 3, 4, 5 weeks. And we've also seen the snap count going down at the same time. So I don't know, do you see a bigger snap count from Stefon Diggs, and that's why he gets more of these looks?
Yeah, I mean, they're either going to have to increase his snap count or they're just going to have to be more thoughtful with his snaps, right? And more focused with snaps. But listen, at the end of the day, when keep going back to the analogy, when your back is against the wall It's a have-to-have football game. You're going to know going into Sunday, into that kickoff, you've got to have it or not, right? And when we say got to have it, that means you win or you go home. Now, there's scenarios that can play out where you don't have to win to make the playoffs. It just means you're going to be on the road next week, right? But if you go into that game and it's a must-win, gotta-have football game, and you've got two guys on your offense by the name of Josh Allen and Stefon Diggs, you got to live and die with those two. It's just when your back's against the wall, you got to turn to your dudes. Those guys are your dudes, and you've got to ride them until they can't go any longer. And if that doesn't happen and Buffalo doesn't come out with a victory, there's some very serious questions that have to get asked about this coaching staff. If you go in with a healthy Josh Allen, a healthy Stefon Diggs, by all accounts, right? And I say that because he's never been on the injury report other than the vet rest. You go in with a healthy Josh Allen, a healthy Stefon Diggs, who came into this season as a top 3 wide receiver quarterback combo in the NFL, and you don't force feed your dude and you lose the game, there's got to be serious questions and probably serious changes made in the coaching staff. And that may mean Joe Brady. It may mean what I've been calling for the last couple seasons in Sean McDermott. I don't think that will happen, but I think there needs to be serious questions that happen. If you go in with those two guys, you lose, and Stefon Diggs has 50% snap count with 3 targets, 1 catch for 8 yards and no touchdowns. It can't happen. It just cannot happen. So I think that there's going to be a big game coming from Stefon Diggs, because I think Joe Brady knows that, and he's going to let Josh Allen go do his thing, and that means getting Stefon Diggs involved early and often in this football game.
Now, if you're Joe Brady, are you trying to figure out a way, and we talked about it a little bit, force feed Stefon Diggs ball? Are you trying to get him away from Ramsey, or are you just saying, I don't care if you're putting Ramsey on him? Because we saw week 1 last season against the Rams, Stefon Diggs went against Jalen Ramsey and he did just fine. So is that something that Joe Brady's going to try to line up Stefon Diggs in different situations where maybe Jalen Ramsey's not the guy on him? Or do you think Joe Brady's going into this matchup saying, I saw what you did week 1 last year, do it again?
I think when you ask anybody in the NFL, and that includes Stefon Diggs, is there anybody on the other side of the field that can cover you? I think there's 2 names. I think there's his brother, and I think there's Jair Alexander, because I think that those are the 2 guys that he's always going to give respect to his brother, right? And Jair is the only guy statistically who has given Stefon Diggs a problem.
Sure.
Jalen Ramsey's not that guy. The Dolphins have never been that team for Stefon Diggs. You line Stefon Diggs up wherever you need to line him up. If they want to have Ramsey follow Stefon Diggs, I think the Bills would welcome that. I think the Bills would welcome the opportunity to get Jalen Ramsey in the slot, matched up against Stefon Diggs, with Gabe Davis on the outside, Shakir on the other side, and then Knox/Kincaid in the other slot. I think they would love that type of matchup, to be able to run the schemes that you can run when Ramsey's in the slot. This Miami Dolphins defense is not the same type of defense when one of Ramsey or Xavier Howard is off the field. They're just not deep like that. They don't have the depth. Eli Apple is not a third corner that can step in and be significant. So if they want to take Jalen Ramsey and throw him on Diggs, Diggs can go to work against him. I still think they'll go at him. If they don't, and they just have Ramsey cover one side of the field, they're just going to line Diggs up wherever he wants, and he's going to have his way with whoever else is in front of him. So I don't think Ramsey plays into any type of trepidation from Joe Brady heading into this football game.
Yeah, absolutely. And a name that you just brought up, someone who I'm really focused on for this Buffalo Bills offense and how he does and what the snap share will be, is Dalton Kincaid. Because week 4 against the Dolphins, Kincaid is still learning the offense. I mean, we all know that Kincaid wasn't really a big part of this offense until much later than week 4. I'm very interested to see what we can expect from Dalton Kincaid, because previous matchups over the last 2-3 weeks, there have been reasons why maybe Kincaid hasn't been the focal point, or at least one of the focal points. It's going to be beautiful in Miami. It's going to be a nice night. There's no reason for me to not have Kincaid as that extra weapon.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to figure out ways to get him the football. I mean, Miami statistically has not been great against tight ends. They're kind of like middle of the pack when it comes to their ratings. I mean, I always look at fantasy production. Yep. They're allowing about 10 fantasy points per game to the tight end position, which is, again, about middle of the road. Just for some context, Buffalo only allows 7.5 points per game against the tight end position. So, it's one of those things where I think Kincaid has been a little bit quieter as things have gone on here. When Dawson Knox got back, you brought back that 12 personnel. You start to kind of wonder who's the lead tight end and things like that. But he's also set the rookie record for the Buffalo Bills for most receptions by a tight end. So, I mean, he's being productive in the role that he's been given. It's just a matter of, is this the game where they try to expand his role, try to make him more of a weapon? I think the loss of Bradley Chubb, the loss of Xavier Howard, being stretched thin at the linebacker at corner position, they're going to find those mismatches. And I think Kincaid's probably going to be the recipient of quite a few of those mismatches as a result of the other weapons that are on this offense. You got to account for Cook. You got to account for Knox. You got to account for Diggs. That leaves Shakir. That leaves Kincaid. Josh has favored Kincaid in those situations, although Shakir has had a couple of big games as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did want James Payne. Thank you very much, guys. The easiest way to help out this channel, hit that thumbs up on, like it, and subscribe, of course. But if you want to go a little bit extra and help us out, to help us provide you with great content, super chat, become a member, you get extra content if you're a member. All that really helps out. So James Payne, $5. Thank you very much. Did you see Barry Cunningham's report about the Dolphins giving tells on the interceptions in the Ravens game? It was a story on Rich Eisen's podcast. I did not see it. Ryan, I don't know if you saw that at all. If you want to talk about that.
No, I hadn't seen anything about it. It's interesting. I'm checking Twitter right now, but I hadn't heard anything about that. But if they're given tells, I mean, that's a bigger problem than they've got. I mean, that's like, that's like, but it would also baseball tipping pitches. I mean, that's a problem if you can't figure out what you're doing. To give those away.
But it would also make sense just giving the one of the biggest knocks on Tua Tagovailoa is he's not good once he comes off his first read, right? So in a defense like the Ravens that's kind of scheming and moving around and is always moving parts, it would make sense that Tua would struggle and Tua would do some of the same things play after play and kind of tip those throws a little bit. And yeah, I mean, if the Bills could catch that, if the Bills could figure out what it is, then that could lead to some good things for Russell Douglas or Teron Johnson or someone else who could make a play in the defensive backfield.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing to keep in mind when it comes to this Miami offense, and I think it's something that's lost and not talked about nearly enough, Tua Tagovailoa is not – he doesn't take care of the football the way that it appears he takes care of the football. And what I mean by that is, Joe, you may know the answer, you may not. Do you know how many fumbles Tua Tagovailoa has this season?
It's a lot. I know it's a
15.
lot now. Yeah,
15. He's got as many fumbles as Josh Allen has rushing touchdowns this season. 15. Right. Now he's only lost 3 of them. Right. But remember those stats that we talked about a couple of seasons ago with Josh Allen, where it was like turnover-worthy plays, right? Like Tua has a lot of turnover-worthy plays, and all it takes is a couple of bounces to go one way or the other, and all of a sudden it's a completely different football game. And the one thing that this Buffalo Bills defense has been over the last few weeks has been opportunistic. Rasul Douglas is a big part of that. Ed Oliver obviously made a huge play last week, your boy, Ed. And, so Tua is, if you can take away, and John beat me to my thought here in the chat, but if you can take away his first read, the chance that he's going to turn the football over in some way, shape, or form increases exponentially. So you've got to figure out a way to get these guys off their routes early, create pressure early in the snap, get some chaos around Tua's feet. And then if you take away that first option, he struggles with those second, third reads, and seriously struggles with the progression of things. And then the longer you keep him in the pocket, the longer you've got guys like Rousseau Epinesa, who's going to be active again, big gain back for them. Those guys coming around the edges, again, 15 times he's fumbled the ball. Statistics say he's going to put the ball on the ground once on Sunday.
Right.
It's just a matter of what color jersey is going to be the one laying on it when the play's over. And if it's Buffalo, it could potentially be a big swing. So keep an eye on that as the game goes on.
Yeah, I find it not. Who was it? Mike Greeny. Yeah. Anyway, like how every week we talk about all these over-unders, and it's like, you know, Tyreek Hill over 100 some yards, Mahomes over 2.5 touchdown passes, and yet every week it's, will Josh Allen throw more than one interception or not, or something like that. Like, and you look at all the quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts is having turnover issues this year. Patrick Mahomes is having some turnover issues this year. And Tua Tagovailoa is having turnover issues this year, and like, no one talks about them nearly as much as we talk about Josh Allen's turnover issues. And it's something that's always kind of baffled me, because yes, I don't like the fact that Josh Allen has not gone back-to-back games without interceptions since 2020. That's annoying, but this would be a great game for that to happen again. No, he did.
Yeah, the reason Josh gets so much flack is because his come at really bad times, and they're usually pretty boneheaded type of decisions. And it's like, how on earth are you making these types of turnovers? But like you said, I mean, he turns the ball over more than the average quarterback, but not a significant amount, as if he's, you know, back in the old days where guys would throw, you know, 20 interceptions in a season, right? So he definitely doesn't deserve the hate that he gets, but certainly understand where it comes from, because they come in a lot of key moments, and they come in some pretty, for a quarterback at least, pretty embarrassing ways in some situations.
It's speaking of that, we haven't had much time to chat since the Bills' last game against the Patriots. That play where he tries to, he's running with the ball, he tries to create, and he throws it, and it just is on the ground. Like, what is he doing there? You know, it worked earlier when he was able to pitch it to Shakir. But to be honest with you, even though a lot of people thought that play was amazing, I didn't even like that play. Like, I was like, you're being taken to the ground by two guys. You need to stop. You know, just tuck the ball and just be happy with what you get. I was so annoyed with that. But yeah, every once in a while, it's Josh doing Josh things, and he does something stupid, and you're just like, really?
Yeah, I don't think Joe Brady does any favors to Josh Allen when he calls designed options like that, like an old school pitch option like he ran early in that game, because then it puts it in Josh's head where it's like, hey, maybe this is a good idea. and then the play later in the game happens, and it's like, oh, that wasn't a good idea at all. But, you know, I think that was one of those things where Joe Brady probably filed that one away and goes, okay, don't have Josh run pitch option, check.
And I think that's what Josh kind of needs as an offensive coordinator, is that, like, he went back to the sideline after that drive, and it probably was more like a conversation of no harm, no foul. He needs an offensive coordinator to be in his face after a play like that and just, like, stop doing that nonsense.
Well, I think what he needs is an offensive coordinator who, when it goes back to the sideline, he goes, you know what, Josh, that one's my bad. I put that in your head early in the game. Not going to happen again. Like, we don't do that here, right? So I'm going to set the example as the adult by not calling those plays early in the game, so you don't get it in your head that that's how we're playing today, right? So, like, he needs an offensive coordinator who's going to somewhat protect him from himself by not calling plays that can go that direction. You know, it's kind of like, if you don't want him throwing YOLO balls, stop calling routes with YOLO, you know, routes in them.
Routes in it,
like, that's a good way to do that. You know, but I think, yeah, at the end of the day, he sometimes does need someone to just go, Josh, what are we doing here? Like, come on, we can't, that can't happen, man. Like, you know that. And, you know, as long as they keep winning football games, I don't know that he's ever going to learn it. And I don't know that I want him to. So
Sure, yeah, because, again, he's one of those quarterbacks where you got to take the good with the bad. In fact, Mario recently put a YouTube short and a TikTok video out there. If you're not following #sports on TikTok, make sure to do that, because Mario does a great job. And it basically describes the short-term Bills fan, someone who's been Bills fan not that long, Bills Mafia, someone like us, explain to them, like, this is what we wanted. You know, 10 years ago, we would have killed for this kind of you know, stuff. So you know what? We'll take it, because That's what we have. So I wanted to bring up John's comment because you also touched on this when you were talking about the game coming up on Sunday a little bit about how you kind of expect them to open up the run game. Start off trying to open up the run game and get that going. And that's surprising to me only because we didn't run the ball too well against Miami the first time we played them. Now, I have not rewatched week 4 since week 4. Did we not run the ball well in that matchup simply because we were passing the ball so well? Or was there something to Miami's front 4, which is now, as we know, a little depleted, that made it tough to run in that game?
No, I think that they were just finding success one way, and it was before all of that, it was working. So we're going to try and find another dimension to the offense nonsense that they went through. But right before he got fired, I think they were just finding success through the air. So they weren't really necessarily trying to run it. And it was really before they found their stride too with Cook. Sure. It's really before Cook looked comfortable running between the tackles. That really has come, he's been a good running back all season, but really the last 5-6 games or so has been where he's hitting the hole. He's being decisive. He's going north-south. He's going into contact and not shying away from it, breaking tackles. He's turning into a running back where they're like, oh, okay, this guy can touch the ball 20 times in a game, and we're okay with that. I think there was still that build up to who's our lead back and kind of all of that was going on at that point in time. And it was really when they were trying to limit Josh on the ground too,
correct,
which has been a huge difference in this running game over the last few games or so, is that now Josh is part of that running game. It turns into that, like we joke about it in the group chat, right? But it's that chaos Josh theory, right? Where it's like when there's the risk of him running, it changes the entire defensive approach to the football game, right? When there's that option where I'm going to hand the ball and the defensives are like, well, he's not going to run it because he hasn't run it all season so far. And now they're looking at the last 5 games. They're like, oh shit, there's a real possibility he's going to pull this and go the other way. Right. Completely changes how you defend that type of play. So I think that's been a big part of it as well. And I think what they need to do, honestly, is they need to come out early and challenge the secondary that's injured in Miami, try to get out to that lead because that's where Josh is comfortable and he makes less mistakes when he's playing with a lead or when he's playing even. Hope that you don't get behind because that's when you don't want to throw the ball, but that's when you have to throw the ball, right? Like Josh is kind of his own worst enemy in that situation. When he's behind, he has to throw. That's when he makes the bad mistakes. When he's ahead and they're throwing well, cool, I can sit back there and I can be comfortable. I can take off and run for 15 yards and be fine with it. But I would like to see them build a 2-possession lead, then turn to the running game and just try to grind the game out for the rest of it, ball control, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's why I bring up this next topic of favorable/least favorable matchups going into this game, because I personally believe that last week's game against New England was either our worst or second worst game from our offensive line this season. Remember, our offensive line, and some people will say it has something to do with Josh Allen too, and it probably does, has given up the least amount of sacks this season of any offensive line. And so when you look at this matchup, for me personally, with the injuries at the defensive line for Miami, this should really be a favorable matchup for the Buffalo Bills. Offensive line versus their defensive line. Didn't they just bring back Cameron Wake? Did I see that? Is that correct?
I hadn't seen Cameron Wake coming back or not, no.
Okay. Who was it that they brought back after Chubb got hurt? Anyway.
I think he did. Yeah, I think he might be back. I don't know if he's going to be starting, but.
Yeah, I don't think he's starting either. So when you look at this, we talked a little about Diggs, Ramsey. What are some of your favorable and least favorable matchups? Some matchups that are like this. If Miami beats us, this is where they're going to beat us going into Sunday.
I don't think Miami beats the Bills on Sunday. I think the Bills can beat the Bills on Sunday. And I think if Josh, it goes back to if Josh can come out and he throws 3 interceptions, fumbles the ball and they lose the turnover battle by more than 1. I think Buffalo can absolutely lose this football game. I think from a matchup perspective where Buffalo probably has the edge, it's going to depend on what Vic Fangio does to try to cover up the loss of those pass rushers, right? Does he Does he just say next man up? I'm going to run the same philosophy that I've been running. If that's the case, I love Buffalo's offensive line in that situation, because I don't think that Wilkins on his own is enough to will a defensive line to be productive, right? He's going to have third, fourth string pass rushers at that point in time. That's a big problem for Miami. Now, if Fangio comes out and says, I can't get home with my defensive line, so I'm going to bring some creative blitzes, I'm going to try and do something a little bit to confuse Josh Allen. He hasn't had great success with that against Josh, but Vic Fangio is a defensive coordinator who can absolutely do that. I think that's maybe where the momentum shifts a little bit, but I ultimately think the offensive line should manhandle the defensive line for the Miami Dolphins, and I think that's going to give Josh time to throw. It's going to let them run the football. It's going to let them grind out those short yardage situations like McDermott likes to. Defensively, I really like the Bills' pass rush against the Miami Dolphins front five. I mean, I think Tua has not performed well when he's under pressure. That Miami offensive line has not been great if they have to protect longer than 2.5 seconds. It's why Tua gets the ball out of his hands faster than any quarterback in the league this year. But if he can't get the ball out of his hands that fast, you're going to see a big pressure up the middle from Oliver, Settle, Poona Ford, those guys coming up the middle, and then a returning Daquan Jones, who was a huge plug into that defensive front last week. I think that's going to be a huge win for the Buffalo Bills if they can keep Tua from that first read, keep the ball in his hands after that first 2.5 seconds, make it 3.5. Those guys get home. I think when you add in all of the pass rushes that Buffalo has, is just too much that I think Miami's going to have to deal with.
And the name that you didn't mention, who in my opinion, there's no excuse for him not to have a big game this week. You were just a healthy scratch last week. You have this huge contract. If you're going to have a big game, it's going to be this game. It's Von Miller, right? Von Miller should have a fire lit under his ass right now saying, because this is the playoffs. Like we said, this is the playoffs. For everyone, including myself, who, when Von was struggling, was like, oh, well, it's okay because we're just saving him for the playoffs, or we need him to look good in the playoffs, not right now. You've had plenty of time to get over your ACL injury at this point. You need to show up now. Like, now is when, and if you do, then the contract's worth it. But if you don't, next year, I think you guys talked about in the last live stream, it's not a lot to get rid of him at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on the other side of things, Joe. I mean, I would put money that Von Miller is not going to be active on Sunday. I think when McDermott looked at what he had in a defensive front without Von Miller, now you get AJ Epinesa, Kingsley Jonathan. He had a tackle. That's a third of the production that Von Miller had in the one game that Kingsley Jonathan has been active this season. It just seems like the want is there from Von Miller. It just seems like he's finally hit that cliff that all pass rushers get. Second ACL injury. He's on the older side of his career. I just think in a game like this, I mean, you can make the argument these are the games that they got Von Miller for, right?
Right.
These are the games that you gave him that big contract for. Was he's going to be the closer? He's going to be the guy that when it's 3rd and 6 and Patrick Mahomes drops back and he's got to have it, Von's the one that's going to stop him from getting it, right? You bring him in for these types of football games. The problem is he's been so ineffective up until this point. Can you even trust him to be active? Or do you look at the rest of your defensive line and go, I can make Von Miller active, or I can make Kingsley Jonathan active. Kingsley Jonathan plays a little bit of special teams. He's got a little bit more juice coming off the edge. He's a different cat in that these offensive coordinators don't have a lot of tape on him. They don't know how to prepare for him coming off the edge versus a Von Miller who we've got 12 years worth of film on. I don't see a scenario. I don't see a scenario that would justify Von Miller being active on Sunday unless they make him active and then he goes out and gets a big sack in a big spot. Then everybody's going to say, okay, that's fine. But if the inactives come out at 6:30 on Sunday and Von Miller's name is in the active column and they make somebody inactive like a Tim Settle or again, even a Kingsley Jonathan, I think there's going to be a lot of head scratching going on, what's McDermott doing? Did somebody get in his ear? Did Von get in his ear? Like, what's going on here? There's going to be a lot of questions, I think, because of how well the defense played last week without him. They were a stark difference without Von Miller on the field.
Yeah. My thought on that, and I don't have an answer to this. I'm literally asking, maybe you do, or maybe it's just one of those things where, we don't know, is if Von Miller was not going to be on the active roster this week, why does he get a veteran rest day in practice this week? I mean, wouldn't you just kind of run him into the ground at that point then and be like, listen, you're not playing this week? And you might not even say anything to him, but in your head, you're like, he's not active this weekend. So
yeah, I mean, I typically with guys like Von, it's probably in his contract that he probably doesn't practice every day. It's probably just one of those things where it's like, contractually, he's going to sit out one day of practice.
And he's earned that right? Like he's earned that right. Like, go ahead.
They also could just have an understanding with Von where they're just like, listen, this is what it is. We're going to treat you just like everything else. We're going to see how things shake out, how the game plan comes out. We'll see if you're active or inactive. And they're just treating him like normal, like a normal week as they move forward. So I mean, there's no benefit to getting him reps in practice by not giving him that rest day, right? He is what he is at this point. He's either healthy or he's not, and if he's not, then he's not going to be productive for the team. So you sit him. And if he is healthy and he is full go, can you make the argument he's the best pass rusher on the team? Not anymore, but is he better than Kingsley Jonathan? Sure, if he's 100%, but I haven't seen any indication that he's 100%.
Right. All right, so I do want to get into our over-unders, but before we do that, I'm playing another game. So I found out, I'm pretty sure I knew this before, but found out this week I'm a little bit of a masochist. And I want your take on this. I would rather this Sunday night football game be all or nothing. Because I feel like if you go into, like right now, if you're a Buffalo Bills player, you have that mindset that Sunday is going to be an all or nothing situation. And Saturday comes and you see the Steelers lose, or Sunday comes and you see the Jaguars lose, you take a sigh of relief. And I don't want that right now because I want the 2 seed. And I don't know if the Bills can make it to the Super Bowl in the 6th seed with the way the AFC shaping up. Would you rather, and you guys can answer this in the comment section, know going into the game that we're in the playoffs, or are you kind of like me and saying we want all or nothing?
From a fan perspective, I would prefer to know before we go into the game, because I'm going to be a ball of nerves otherwise. I mean, I may legitimately come do the game with you just so I have some release to the game if there is if it's a win and in scenario. Yeah.
You're more than welcome to, by the way. You can join me, absolutely.
If you're the players, I think you can make the argument that's a differentiator between these two teams, right?
Yeah.
The Dolphins are coming into this football game and they'd like to have the win because they'd like to win the division. They'd prefer to win the division, but they don't have to win the division, right? They don't have to win this football game at the end of the day. And that's going to be in the back of their heads, right? Like, can you imagine a scenario, Joe, where it's the beginning of the 4th quarter, Buffalo is up 17 points. Can you picture a scenario where Mike McDaniel just pulls all of his starters?
Absolutely. Especially with
what because you've got to start then thinking about we're going to Kansas City next week.
Yep.
Right? Like, I don't want to go to Kansas City next week with these guys all banged up, so I'm just going to pull them and I'll rest them.
Absolutely.
If the Buffalo Bills have to have this football game, that's a big differentiator. We saw what this Buffalo Bills team looks like in games like that when they played the Cowboys, right? The Cowboys wanted that game. The Bills needed that football game.
Right. Correct.
And that was the story of the game, right? The Bills just manhandled. They looked like the team that needed that win. The Cowboys looked like a team that kind of wanted it, but it wasn't a big deal if they lost. It was a non-conference game. Who cares really at the end of the day? It's not going to hurt us in the long run.
Right. And that's
I mean, from a player perspective, I would be surprised if Pittsburgh wins Saturday I would be shocked if we heard after the Bills game was over. I would be shocked to hear that McDermott allowed any of those players to see what happened in that Tennessee Jacksonville game. I'd be shocked to hear that.
Absolutely.
They didn't even broadcast the Broncos score in the stadium during the game last week. I don't think he's going to have any opportunity to give the Bills an easy out mentally from this football game on Sunday if Pittsburgh loses or wins tomorrow.
Yeah, because the Jaguars score will be at the stadium, right? They'll have it somewhere because they'll scan the scores, and Miami's not going to care what the Bills think about what's going on. So it's going to be there. All right, so I want to play a game, over-under. I got a couple of over-unders. I know that you have some of the prop bets, the big prop bets. So if we have time, we'll get to those as well. I want you guys in the chat to participate. Let me know what you think. You know what, Ryan? I'm going to let you pick the over or the under, and you can argue, and I'll just play devil's advocate and tell you why it's going to be under. I'm not saying that's why I think it's going to happen, but I'll just play devil's advocate just for fun, so we have a little back and forth. But it's going to start with a fun one, and the reason why I picked this is because there's money involved, and I'm not just talking bets. For this guy, there's money involved. So we're going to go straight to Leonard Floyd. For those of you who do not know, I think it's with 1.5 sacks. It might be 2 sacks, but I think it's 1.5. With 1.5 sacks, Leonard Floyd gets $2 million richer. He has an incentive in his contract, 1.5 more sacks, and he'll get $2 million. In the comment section, Ryan, what do you think? Will he get 1.5 sacks, over, under, or even 1.5?
I want to say over for Leonard Floyd because I think he's been the sneaky biggest signing that the Bills have made in quite some time. I'm going to go under. I mean, 1.5 is a tall number for a guy like Leonard Floyd who doesn't play. He plays like about 40 to 50% of the snaps. That's a big number, and Tua doesn't tend to get sacked a lot. I definitely could see Floyd being in on the big sack that kind of holds the game or turns the tide of the game. I don't think he's going to go over 1.5 though, and I think even a push would be tough. Now, don't think he doesn't know what that number is. Don't think he's not telling his defensive line teammates, that they may be just like, he may just be diving on top of the piles if they get to Tua, trying to get credit for one. But no, I'll take the under on this one.
All right, then I'll take the over. I think that, you talked earlier about this defensive front four and the pressure they get on. You look at Leonard Floyd's sack numbers, and it's, this is why it's even more impressive. It's with a limited snap count, right? It's like his snap counts, I think, around 60%, 50-something%. And so I think that if he's close to this number, as he is, McDermott might be, especially in a game if the Bills are well ahead, McDermott is going to be willing to play him a higher snap count if that's what he prefers. Because remember, the money's not coming out of Sean McDermott's pocket, so what does he care? Unless Pagula does what Ralph did when the flutie Rob Johnson thing. But anyway, I digress. But I think he plays him a higher snap count, and for that reason, I could see him easily getting the 1.5. Now, what you want to be careful of, which you mentioned, is I don't want to see, because the moment he gets a 15-yard penalty, he's out, right? Like if he jumps on a pile late, or if he tries anything fishy and he gets a penalty for it, he's out, and he won't be getting that number. But I think if McDermott plays him a higher snap count, 70-75%, he has a good chance of getting that number, because like you said, the whole defensive line knows at this point what he needs to get this number. So yeah, 1.5 sacks, he gets it. He gets his $2 million extra, and he gives it to all of us, of course. So next, we want to talk about our MVP. We want to talk about Josh Allen. 40 touchdowns on the year, not good enough for a Pro Bowl, that kind of stuff. I'm not salty about it at all. So we're going to start off with a light one. I think I know where you're going on this, which means I'll have to play devil's advocate, which I don't want to do, but I'll do it. Josh Allen over under 1.5 passing touchdowns.
So if it was total touchdowns, the line would probably be what, 2.5 total touchdowns?
Total touchdowns.
I think because of the game script and the way that I think they're going to have to win this football game, I'm going to take the over on this one. again, I think they're going to have to come out and throw the ball early, throw the ball often, try to get that lead. I'm going to take the over on it. But again, keep in mind that the Bills have a tremendous record when Josh has a running touchdown and a passing touchdown. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. And they've been better in goal-to-go situations running the football this year than they have in past years. They've allowed Josh to run better. Cook is better. Ty Johnson's better. I'd love to see Leonard Fournette be active because he's better inside that situation. So I could completely see, Josh have 400 yards passing. All the receivers get tackled inside the 5-yard line and the Bills wind up with 4 rushing touchdowns, right? I could completely see that scenario happening, which is probably the way you're going to argue it. But I expect a long touchdown, and then I expect some trickeration inside the red zone that winds up with somebody butt naked open in the end zone for a touchdown. I think Brady's going to scheme something cute up there, and Josh will get his second passing touchdown of the game, hopefully early in the first quarter for me.
Well, I mean, wouldn't it be interesting if Josh Allen isn't the one throwing that touchdown pass? Wouldn't that, like we were talking about trickeration, we're talking about
maybe he's the one catching the touchdown pass.
Exactly. John Brown, not too long ago, John Brown threw a touchdown pass to Josh Allen. So I think that, if I look at this, because I'm not gonna, and remember, guys, I'm only playing devil's advocate. Don't hate me. I'm not gonna sit here and talk about the Dolphins shutting down this Bills offense, only because in 11 games they have yet to do it, and in those 11 games, I don't think that this is the best Dolphins defense that Josh Allen's played against. I mean, the best defense Josh Allen's played against Miami was the 90-degree heat. Like, that was the best defense he's played against Miami. But
he still threw the ball 60 times for 4
right, exactly. He's put up great numbers in that game. But I think that the way you get under this number is, as you said, right? You get a bunch of balls inside the 10, and then if Leonard Fournette is active or whoever the case might be, Josh Allen with a brotherly shove, except for better. You see the touchdown passes not getting there. And to me, that's the only way this number does not hit. If Miami wins this game, like you said, I see us losing that game more than them winning it. But at the same time, I can't see Miami winning this game and the under hitting at the same time. If you look at the bottom of the screen right now, the over-under is 48.5. And so I can see the Bills winning this game and that number hitting, the under hitting. I can't see a scenario where the Dolphins win this game and that doesn't hit over. So I think that the only way Josh Allen does not hit over a 1.5 touchdown passes is if there's a lot of running touchdowns, which brings me to my next over under, which will be absolutely impossible to argue and have both of them correct at least, and that's Josh Allen, 0.5 rushing touchdowns. Go ahead, Ryan.
Over on this. I think Allen gets into the end zone. Running the football, I think, again, they're exponentially better as a football team. I think the stat winds up being like 33-6 in games where he's got a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown. There's been a conscious effort to get him into the end zone. He's got 15 on the season, I believe. He's pressing for the franchise record. Yep. So, I think over. I think, again, Josh is that dude for you as a Bills offense. I think you get the ball in his hands as often as you can. Obviously, he's the quarterback, so it's in his hands every snap. But, you call meaningful plays, quarterback draws from the 5, from things of that nature, get him out in space, roll him out. I think he's going to definitely get into the end zone running the ball this week against Miami.
I think this is where the fact that the Bills play Sunday Night Football comes into play. Not only in the fact that we know if we need to win again in the playoffs or not, but right now, Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts both have 15 touchdowns, and they are tied for the record, for the single season record for rushing touchdowns by a quarterback. By this game, we will know if Jalen Hurts scored another rushing touchdown or 2 rushing touchdowns in his game against the Giants. So I think that will impact, as much as it can, at least, Josh Allen, yes or no, getting a rushing touchdown. Because if Josh is still tied with Jalen Hurts at the start of this game, and the Bills have the ball first and goal at the 5, I believe that Joe Brady and Coach McDermott will do everything they can to get Josh Allen that record. With that being said, I also think that they'll do everything they can to win this game, and that takes precedence over that record. And it would take precedence for Josh Allen as well. I like what Spin said, and that's why I have to go with. It's pretty much the exact opposite argument that I just made for why he won't throw for more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. Is the reason why he won't run for a touchdown is because he'll have so many passing touchdowns. And you look at the running backs behind him, if you have Fournette in there, you want to give different looks. You don't want to run Allen at the 1 every single time because, even as I say that, I say, yes, you do, because it works. I can't even say that with a straight face because it's like, yes, you do. It works every time. Why wouldn't you? But yeah, maybe you want to throw in a Leonard Fournette touchdown or a James Cook. Me personally, I'm a huge fan. If a running back has like a 25-plus yard run to the 1 yard line, even if it's like your thin dasher Sproles guy, give him a shot at the 1. Just give him one shot at the 1 to see if he can get in and get that touchdown.
It's like DeAndre Swift this season has been really great at getting tackled at the 1 yard line.
Right.
He's been amazing at it.
And then they bring in oh my gosh, I know his name. I can't think of it. But yeah, they bring in somebody else from the 1 or Jalen Hurts, right? They do
Jalen Hurts, yeah.
And then it's like, oh, well, thank you for the long run. I'll take it from here. So that would be my only argument. Next one, and I know where you're going to go on this one simply because of previous conversations, but I think this is where Vegas currently has the number. And if we look at the last game, it was right there as well. Stefon Diggs over under 5.5 receptions.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over on it. I think, I talked enough about why I think he'll be over on this one. I just think they're going to force feed him the football. I think they're going to try and get him the ball in space. They've been trying to get him the ball in those little screen passes, little slant routes, things like that. They were so close on connecting on a deep ball last week. I feel like this is the week that they kind of put it all together. They've been really trying to connect with each other over the last few weeks, and I think they really do. So I know that means that you're going to take the under, but you've been kind of stuck with the unders or the other side, the bad side of these arguments. So I'll throw another one out for you, just on the same vein.
All right.
So Stefon Diggs, his lowest over under of the season is this week in terms of receiving yards. 59.5 receiving yards for Stefon Diggs. Over under for you.
Then I will take the over there. Absolutely. I think that, like you just said, they were so close to connecting on like a 50-yard bomb. And that's the type of play that can be done once. And we saw week 4, 6 receptions, I think over 150, right? Like he was over 150 in that game, week 4.
Yep.
So are we thinking that Jalen Ramsey, a guy who previously got burnt by Stefon Diggs himself, is going to do 100 yards better than what the defense did against Stefon Diggs in week 4? No, I don't see that happening. And again, like you said, and I think it's a great point, your week 18, your football life is on the line. You go to your horses. You go to the guys that are making the money, and you go to the guys who are your superstars. And again, they didn't make the Pro Bowl, but we all know who our superstars are on this team. You rely on Josh Allen. Josh Allen's guy is Stefon Diggs. Double-digit targets is not out of the realm of possibilities for me either. And so if you give Stefon Diggs double-digit targets, I think you find a way to get him over 60 yards.
You got any more?
I do. Absolutely,
okay.
I do. I got one more. A defensive.
I got one for you after.
Okay, perfect. So my over under is going to be Rasul Douglas. Over under 0.5 interceptions.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, I think that's tough because Tua doesn't tend to turn the ball over in back-to-back football games. But Tua turns the ball over a lot in December and January. I want to say his stat line is like 23 touchdowns to 16 interceptions in December and January. So with that being said, I think if there is an interception coming, it's probably going to be Douglas that gets it.
Okay.
But I also think that Douglas has done enough to where, unless he's lined up on Hill exclusively, which I don't see him lining up exclusively on Hill, I'm going to take the under because I think Tua and McDaniel will actively avoid Rasul Douglas. I wouldn't be surprised if Waddle is active, that Douglas just follows Waddle and they live with whatever Tyreek gets defensively. So I'm going to go under on this one, which is probably the first one that you actually wanted to argue for the other side of things. So.
No, I'm happy arguing with you over. It's fine either way. I think that you brought up a great point. Something that I wanted to bring up as well is that, Tua, as it gets later in the season, and you talked about how Tua doesn't turn the ball over much in back-to-back games. Well, Tua hasn't had to play teams with a winning record too much in back-to-back games. Other than Dallas, who, let's be honest, Dallas is the Miami of the NFC. They don't play up to their competition, and they lose. What was it? That was the first time in NFL history that two teams with 10 or more wins were playing each other, and they only had one win combined against a team above 500 going into that game. Like, that's a crazy stat to think about. So you're talking about going up against the Baltimore Ravens defense, who, as someone said earlier, kind of exposed you. And as was mentioned in other media platforms, they might have been tipping their pitches. And if you're tipping your pitches against someone who has turned out to be one of the best corners maybe in the league, in Rasul Douglas, since he's come to Buffalo, he's been one of the best corners in the league. I think that could lead to disaster, especially knowing how Rasul Douglas plays and knowing that you got Poyer and Hyde behind you, or even Rapp behind you. He's going to go after the ball a little bit. Now, I would like this number a little bit more if it said 0.5 turnovers, because I could see him also forcing a fumble. Because believe it or not, and you can speak to this a little bit, Tyreek Hill does sometimes get some fumbling issues. And he's a great receiver. I would love to have him on the Bills. Any team would be great to have him. But the reason why he's a great receiver is because no one can catch him once he has the ball. If you catch him and you get your hands on that ball, he can fumble that thing too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, so for you,
yes.
So here's one for you. So I'll put a little bit different spin on it. So I'll read the two out. So passing yards on the day. Tua's over under 268.5. Josh's over under 243.5.
All right, give me a second. I'm gonna write this down.
Simple question.
Yeah.
Who has more passing yards at the end of the game?
All right, so what was
Josh Allen or Tua Tagovailoa? Tua's at 268.5. Allen's at 243.5. Doesn't matter, over under, whatever. Who has more yards at the end of the game?
But Vegas thinks that Tua's gonna have 25 more passing yards. Well, you know why that is, though, right?
Because they're going to be playing from behind, according
to they're going to be playing from behind, and like you said, if we get a double-digit lead, James Cook's going to see a lot of touches. Josh Allen's going to run the ball a lot, So I could see that, but even still, here I'll bring it up again. We had it up earlier. I'll bring it up again, guys, if I still have it up. That'd be Josh Allen against Miami. It's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive. What, you look at the last couple games, his lowest is 250, 400, 304, 320. I mean, that's kind of, and that 403, that's the game in Miami where everyone was dead on the field. That's nuts. That's nuts. I look at this stat and I think that if Miami has trouble passing the ball, Buffalo's defense isn't going to let up until the fourth quarter. And in the fourth quarter, if the Bills are still up double digits, it's not hard for me to see, as you brought up earlier, Tua taking a seat in the fourth quarter and saying, hey, I'm done. Josh won't take a seat unless they're up 24 or 30 points. I think that especially in the fourth quarter. I think that if the Bills are up 2-3 scores going into the fourth quarter, McDermott's going to want Josh in there for one more possession, one more score before he takes him out. I think that Josh will have somewhere between 255 and 260, and I could see Tua having somewhere between 215 and 225. So I
go low, super low game for Tua then. You're
yes, yes, absolutely. Okay. I think if Tua doesn't hit the over, it's super low, and so for that I gotta go with Josh.
Yeah, I could see that. I would take Josh in the scenario as well. I think again Josh is going to push 300 yards. I think he's going to have a huge game because he has to have a huge game because the coaching staff needs him to have a big game because again, you got to win or die with your guy, and you're paying him $250 million to be your guy. You got to live by him. You got to die by him. And these are the games that you lean on him for. And these are the games that Josh has been great in. They haven't been great at closing those football games. We can argue over whose fault that is. But these are games that he's really performed well in. These prime time, gotta have, playoff feel type of games. This should be a massive game for Josh Allen.
Yeah. All right, one more question for you, and I'll give you my answer as well, and then I want your score prediction. I want from you one guy that no one's talking about, or that very few people are talking about, I should say, that's kind of a dark horse in this matchup. Bills win, but someone has a surprise game that you weren't expecting, a name you weren't expecting to say Sunday during postgame, Monday during postgame. Who do you think that is?
I mean, would it be off base to say big game Gabe? Like, has he been quiet enough this season where you can kind of remind everybody that he's got the playoff record for most touchdowns in a playoff game? Like, Gabe Davis. I mean, I think, again, if you're Miami, you're looking at this passing attack from Buffalo. I'm not sure that you're focused so much on Davis. He's had one good game since Brady took over as the offensive coordinator. He's had one good game in the last 8 weeks of football. It's easy to forget about him. You know, but again, he's the highest snap count percentage of all the wide receivers on the roster. And he's got one of those, he just has something in him where he just flips a switch. And I joke about it in the group chats that I'm in with Bills fans, where I'm like, he can be the best number 2 wide receiver in the NFL a couple times a year. And I think this might be one of those games. Again, if Josh is going to explode for a big game, I don't think it's going to be on the back of 150 yards from Stefon Diggs. I think Diggs is going to get close to 100. They're going to force feed him the ball, all that stuff. But if he's going to have a monster game, there's one guy on the offense that can preempt that receiving wise, and that's Gabe Davis. And I think we're going to be talking about, did Gabe play himself into a contract with Buffalo next season purely out of this performance with the nostalgia and the recency bias and all that stuff that comes with it? I expect a big game from Gabe Davis, over 100 yards, 2+ touchdowns. Anytime touchdowns, if you're a betting person, 2+ for Gabe Davis, I think is good bet. He's probably close to like plus 1,100, somewhere in that range for a line. But I definitely would throw out Gabe Davis on that side of the football.
Sure. Now, if I was going to go offense, I like James Payne here, and it's kind of the same thinking as you. I'm just not, going to go with Gabe. I'm a huge Shakir fan. Like, I love him. Like, and speed kills, right? I think about the games we played against the Chiefs in the playoffs, and I think about, obviously Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill, but I think about one guy that just frustrated me every single game we played against him, and that was Hardman. Was it Hard? I think that's how you say it, like Hardman. Just with his speed, right? And it seemed like he was just there. I am a huge Shakir fan, but again, I'm not. It is what it is. My guy, though, the guy that I'm thinking about, who no one's talking about, who kind of like Gabe Davis has like a big play when it's needed, or when you kind of least expect him to, and that's Johnson. Johnson is going to come up with a pick like at a huge time, and I think that as a slot corner, I love him so much, and I think that people underestimate what he can do for this team. I probably don't go a single week without thinking about him in that Baltimore Ravens game in the playoffs going for a pick six. Like, it was just
it's funny. I was going to bring that up because I've as I've talked about, I've had season tickets for 20 plus years for the Buffalo Bills, and I still maintain that Taron Johnson gave one of the greatest moments as a Bills fan in Bills Stadium in that Ravens game. I remember it was the COVID year. There were only, I think it was like 3,000 tickets or something stupid like that was allowed. Yeah. I was there with a friend of mine who went to the game. We were on the opposite end. He was coming at us after the interception and the run back. And for all time, Taron Johnson will be a top 10 favorite Buffalo Bill of mine for that moment alone. It's great pick there because he's a do-it-all, jack of all trades for that defense. Very underappreciated nationally. I would even argue underappreciated locally amongst Bills fans about how impactful he is to that defense. Just so good and so due for a massive play in a game like this.
I remember I was watching the game. I was live streaming the game, of course. And first of all, it was one of those calls where I had to go back and watch it because I had no idea what I said or what I did during the call. It was like an out of body experience. But I remember the announcers even saying, like, there might have only been 5,000 people in the stands, but it felt like 50,000 people were there because of how loud it got. And it was, and I remember. Because the first thing I yelled when I intercepted it was go down. Like, I yelled because he was in the end zone. So I was like, go down. And then the moment he started taking off, you saw it was nothing. Like, you saw Lamar Jackson was the only guy who might have a shot. And that was a good job by Trey White not giving up on that play either to make sure you got that block in there. But, yeah, probably for as long as I've been streaming games, which has been since 2017, I think. Nathan Peterman year, whatever, 2018. That's been my favorite moment of all time as far as calling games, because man, that was such a great moment in Bills history. Yeah. So all right. So final question, then we'll get out of here. Less than 48 hours from now, we will know what unless it goes into overtime, what the outcome is. And don't forget to join me right here live on #sports for play-by-play. From what I just found out, Ryan might join me for the game, which, again, you're more than welcome. All right, score prediction. So you got one for me?
Yeah. I talked about it with Mario and Paul when we did the post game last week. I don't think my opinion has changed much. I talked about it a little bit earlier. It's a team that has to win versus a team that wants to win. And the hunter in those situations tends to win out, especially when that team is the most talented team on the field. Right. The Bills are the most talented team on the field. They have the most talented player at the most important position in sports. They're a team that has to win. They're a team whose defense is playing exceptionally well right now against an offense that's sputtering, and an offense that can score with any team in the league, arguably the best offense in the NFL against a severely depleted defense. This is a game that the Buffalo Bills have to win, not only for their own, playoff lives, season lives, but for really the well-being of their locker room. I feel like the well-being of the mental health of its fan base. Like, there's a lot on the line here. I think this is a football game. I've been a pragmatic Bills fan for a very long time, and it's difficult to do that when you also cover the team in a fan capacity, because people don't want you to be pragmatic, right? People want you to be optimistic. People want you to be positive. People want you to say that they're going to win every football game. This is a game I really, truly feel like Buffalo is going to run away and hide on this game. They're going to get out early. They're going to score. They're going to stop Miami's first drive. They're going to go down and score again. They're going to hang on. I'm calling 31-17 Buffalo. I just think that they're going to do a ton on offense. They're going to make the Dolphins chase them. Defensively, they've been opportunistic. Their strengths match up really well with Miami's weaknesses. Miami, I feel like, has one guy offensively that's going to beat you. The other one's hobbled. Tyreek Hill's the one guy you got to shut down. McDermott has done a fair job in the past of shutting down the one guy, or at least mitigating the damage created by one guy. And I think the secondary is as good as it's been in a long time for Buffalo. So as pragmatic as I tend to be, as optimistic, as pessimistic as my brain is telling me, because I want to go back to, I've seen this movie before, right? With Buffalo, we've been here, we've done this, we know how this story ends. And 48 hours from now, I could be jumping on the post game, and I could be bringing back my it doesn't matter. None of this matters. What are we even talking about anymore here with this football team? I don't care anymore, right? Like I could be doing that. I don't think I'm gonna. I think this is a game that they're gonna send a message to the league, send a message to Miami. It's not your time yet. We're still here. This is still our division. We're gonna come back next year healthier and remind you of these victories. We're gonna take the 2 seed. We're gonna watch Baltimore host Cleveland and Joe Flacco in the divisional round. We're gonna seize back home field advantage for the rest of the AFC playoffs, and you're going to be able to say in 2 weeks that the playoffs, the AFC goes through Buffalo. And that's something that we've been waiting to say for quite a long time. This is a legacy defining performance for Josh Allen and a legacy defining game for Sean McDermott, in my opinion. So this is a game, again, I think Buffalo runs away and hides 31-17. Could be a bigger margin of victory depending on what McDaniel decides to do with his starters. He seems stubborn enough where he may leave them in. He also seems smart enough where he may pull them. If that's the case, I expect a bigger margin because Allen's going to play longer than Tua, regardless of how this shakes out. Buffalo 31-17, and I think this is a celebration stream in 48 hours, and I hope everyone in the chat is joining us for that as well, because I'm sure Mario and Paul will join, and I'm sure you, Joe, even though you'll be exhausted, you'll probably hop on at that point too, because it's going to be a party here on hashtag after this game's all said and done.
It's amazing how much my exhaustion goes away when the Bills win. Like, it's amazing the difference how I feel after a game when the Bills lose compared to when the Bills win. So I will happily join you guys. Cameron, if this happens, if this is the final score of the game, I will be exhausted by the end. I promise you I will be exhausted. If it's 48-45, my voice will be gone. And, I feel bad for my kids because, they have an 8 o'clock bedtime. There's no way they're staying asleep. There's no way. I feel bad for my wife who's going to have to put them back to sleep. I feel a lot like you do, minus the runaway and hide part. I feel like they're going to run away with this game and keep running. I think this is the first time, because as we talked about at the beginning of the stream, Sean McDermott has never felt this much pressure in a regular season game. Like, probably never. And it's really hard for any coach to simulate the kind of pressure that he is going to face in this game, like that he's facing right now. Like, it's not – we can agree he's probably done enough to keep his job this season. No matter what happens, he's done enough to keep his job this season. But this goes a long way into next season if he cannot – as you said, the Bills need – and the Dolphins just kind of want. I'm frozen. A game that still have me or not? Do you have me, Ryan?
I have you back. Yeah. I think you might be back now.
All right. Yeah, I'm freezing here. So I'll try to give a quick analysis, and then I'll get out of here so you guys can enjoy your weekend and watch me on Sunday. Am I gone again? Am I just gone again? What is going on?
No, I can hear you. I can hear you now.
Okay, good. So I will give my prediction. What'd you say yours was again?
31-17 Buffalo.
31-17. I think the Bills put up a 40-burger. I think the Bills,
interesting.
Like I said, kind of run away with this game. I could see this game being 45, and I don't think Miami scores much at all. And I, like you said, I see the second half. I see Tua, Tyreek Hill, Waddle, Mostert. I see them all sitting a lot. 45-21 will be my final score. I think this is a blowout game, and the Buffalo Bills are red hot going into the playoffs. That's my prediction. Buffalo Bills, number 1 seed. And listen, I'm going to come on the stream afterwards. I'm going to hold up my one finger because they need to start acknowledging our Buffalo Bills, because this will be back to back to back to back AFC East titles, and I see that happening Sunday. Don't forget to join me live Sunday, live play and reaction Ryan, like I said, you're always welcome to join me, man. I'm surprised. So you're not going to the game?
No, I'm not going down to Miami. No. I got work. I got kids, man.
I forgot it's Miami for some reason. Yeah, exactly.
I will
when you have kids.
If they clinch the 2 seed, though, playoffs, here we come, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you have kids, it's amazing how your plans they're a little bit different, right? Like everything changes just a little bit. You watch people flying on the plane, like, good for you. You do that. We'll be there in about 15 years, Ryan, you and me.
That's right.
So we'll do
That's right. Empty nest.
That's right. But hashtag Nation Bills Mafia. Thank you for joining us on this Friday, kind of impromptu special edition of Hashtag Sports. Ryan, thank you for joining me. A lot of fun, man. I look forward to talking trash this weekend in the group chat and having some fun.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, go Bills. Thanks everyone who joined the stream. Looking forward to hopefully having you all join a positive celebration on Sunday night after this one's wrapped up. We'll do our level best to make sure Mario and Paul are here for it as well, even though they did ignore Joe in the group chat today when he asked if anybody wanted to join him. So make sure you guys give Mario and Paul hell for skipping this one today. So
we're gonna make them do a 2-minute roast on Sunday after a win.
There you go.
That's the plan. All right, guys. Yes, enjoy your weekend. I know for all of us, it's going to all depend on what happens Sunday, but we're going to have a good time. And don't forget to join me live Sunday night football, Bills, Dolphins for the AFC East title. I look forward to it. I look forward to talking to you all soon. Until we do, go Bills.
Go Bills.